In this video, I want to talk a little bit about addictions and how to dissolve addictions using awareness rather than personal willpower. So addictions are a pretty big topic for most people. There's the big kinds of addictions like drugs and alcohol, and then there's the more normalized forms of addiction such as food and sex and social media and money and having any kind of emotional stimulation really, just looking for some kind of excitement or turning towards entertainment as a distraction or an escape. And even thinking becomes an addiction. For most people, thinking is an addiction. You're not able to stop thinking. And so what people tend to try and do is use their willpower to suppress an addiction. And they focus on not doing the behavior or having the thoughts, which usually isn't very effective long term. And it does turn out to be some kind of suppression. And I've experienced that firsthand with dealing with my own addictions and compulsions from the past, that when I tried to stop them, because I could see clearly that they weren't nourishing me, they weren't uplifting me in any way, they were actually draining my energy and distracting me from what I wanted to do in my life. And so the natural course of action then is to try and stop it. You want to take this thing out of your life. You want to remove the compulsion or the addiction. And the intention is good, but you're actually still using the same ego mechanism that is causing the addiction. You're using that same mechanism to try and stop the addiction. It's control, it's suppression, it's domination. And that's part of the problem of why the addiction exists in the first place. There's an unnatural way of being that we've learned to exist in. We've learned to live a certain way that is disconnected from our hearts, from our soul, from the greater intelligence or God. And it's through that disconnection that these addictions and compulsions develop. So when we don't feel connected, when we don't feel love and peace in our hearts, then there is a desire on the ego's part to try and search out some substitute for not feeling that deeper connection. So the ego is looking for pleasure. It's looking for some kind of sensation, emotional experience, physical sensation, to try and distract you away from this emptiness or loneliness that you feel inside. So until you really understand and are able to witness that phenomenon happening in you, where you see that there is this emptiness, this disconnect, and the compulsion or the addiction is trying to cover that up, and you reorient your attention towards actually developing and cultivating that connection within. Until you see that, you can go for years and years trying to suppress your addictions and compulsions using your willpower. And you're basically shutting yourself off from some source of pleasure without having anything to fill that void. So it creates a vacuum. When you use your willpower to try and repress a egoic desire, which becomes a compulsion or an addiction over time, when you use your willpower, you're just shutting yourself down, shutting yourself off. You're denying yourself a pleasure without having any form of connection to take its place. And so there exists this intense anxiety. People get angry, they get destructive, they feel lonely, they feel more depressed. And then at some point, usually the addiction comes back in with even more energy because they felt so alone, scared, and anxious in trying to take the addiction away that now they're even more afraid that they can't do it the next time, that they're not going to ever be able to break the addiction. But if you recognize what your ego is trying to do, your ego is trying to bring you a sense of connection, it's trying to bring you a sense of well-being, of peace, of happiness, and it does that through seeking in the outer world, looking outside of yourself for something to fill that void. So let's use awareness, and we can practice right now to use this awareness that we all are and that we have access to understand what the ego is doing in those moments that it's seeking outside itself, And again, this could be something as simple as checking your phone too many times throughout the day, going on social media when you know it doesn't serve you. Something's happening in that moment where you're seeking a deeper connection with yourself, with the universe, with God. And rather than going in and cultivating that connection, going within to cultivate that, you're turning outside of yourself. And every time you do that, the ego gets strengthened and reinforced in its belief that by going outside, it gets some relief. Of course, the relief is always short-lived, and it's always conditional. Depends on all the circumstances and the people around you. If you're able to meet your needs in that way, which sometimes you are, but underlying that is usually an anxiety, because you know at some point that thing's going to go away, whether it's food, sex, money, sense of power. So there's a great insecurity that is developed through strengthening the ego by following those compulsions and addictions. It feels good, it takes away the anxiety, but it leaves you feeling more insecure, and at some point it usually self-destructs. So seeing that phenomenon, seeing the overall picture of that event, what's going on in you, you can make a new decision where you're not using your willpower to suppress the compulsion or the addiction. You're using the awareness to cultivate compassion towards yourself, and then actually working towards cultivating that connection. So you can try this next time you feel a sense of urgency to do anything, really, to look outside yourself for any kind of anxiety relief, whether it's checking your phone, eating more food than you need to eat, whatever it is. Stop, take a deep breath, and you can even say in your mind, you can acknowledge what's going on. You can say, ego, I see you, thank you for your service, but I now choose love. I choose to take my love from the source within. And you can close your eyes and bring your attention into your heart. And just allow your mind and your emotions to settle, keeping your attention in your heart. And you're feeling for that sense of well-being, a sense of peace, and really a sense of connection to yourself. That feeling of reconnecting with yourself, and it feels like well-being and peace. You feel more yourself. You feel more comfortable in the present moment. And so you just breathe into your heart, and you can put a little smile on your face, which helps to reinforce that positive energy shift. And with each breath, you can allow your body to relax a little more. And keeping your attention in your heart, just allowing your own energy field and your body to fill with your energy and your awareness. And it feels like a coming home kind of experience, like returning to a place that feels really, truly safe in that experience of yourself. And once you feel that connection reestablished, then you can open your eyes and re-engage with the world around you, continue on with what you're doing. But again, notice the compulsion will arise, as it will. And again, do the same process. And it may take a few seconds, it may take a few minutes, but give yourself the space and the time to fully honor the process. What your heart and soul is seeking is connection and love, being felt within you and expressed out through you. The ego is also searching for that, but in a very backwards, maladaptive way, and that expresses itself as compulsions and addictions. So you can use your awareness to see the bigger picture, bring compassion and understanding, and you can talk directly to the ego. Thank you for your service, ego, but I choose to take my love from the source within, or I choose to be nourished from within. Go into your heart. Feel the presence, the stillness, the peace. And then continue on. And so in that way you're breaking the pattern, breaking the habits, And also, if you aren't able to do that, don't spend 1 second beating yourself up. That just keeps those compulsions in place, and it strengthens the ego. So you think of it just as you're working on a relationship with yourself. And it takes time, and it takes commitment, just like any relationship. And over time, the addictions and the compulsions will just naturally lessen. They'll just fall away. So you're no longer needing to try and push something down or suppress something. You are putting something else in its place. And that's a real, genuine connection with yourself. There's also other ways you can do that. You can just sit in presence. You don't have to necessarily bring your attention to your heart. You can go into nature and be with things that calm you and relax you. But the most direct way is by focusing on your energy field, either your heart, some part of your energy field, most strongly felt in the heart. So hopefully this helps and inspires you on your journey.